Hello everyone, my name is John Bussart. I'm an HPE Solution Center Engineer for Ingram Micro. Help support servers, blade systems, storage, as well as networking technology solutions from HPE. In my videos, what I like to do is show you a slide from a popular PowerPoint and explain to you what that means within the management interface. Today we're going to explore the Hyperconverged 380, or it's abbreviated as HC380. We're going to explore its fast time to value found with OneView InstantOn. InstantOn is an automated process for deploying a Hyperconverged 380 cluster or expanding this cluster as well. It allows us to configure the compute, the shared storage, the hypervisor, as well as the management technology found within this solution in an automated and easy to use process. Now, the InstantOn process found within a Hyperconverged 380 is similar to what you're going to find in a Hyperconverged 250, except with the 380, a secondary process is going to be launched after the initial InstantOn process completes. This secondary process is going to allow us to do an automated deployment of the new user experience within the environment. And this is a nice tool that allows somebody who isn't necessarily virtualization savvy to be able to work within this infrastructure in a quick and easy to use fashion. So, with that being said, let's explore this management interface. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to take your system, you're going to plug a crossover cable from the local network adapter into the appliance. And then per the instructions, what you're going to do is set this local network adapter up to be on the same subnet as this IP address. So there's a virtual machine that launches in this infrastructure that's pre-configured and ready to roll that you have to log into. So we're going to remote into this system right now. So this system we're logging into is going to end up becoming our vCenter incident or our management platform within this environment. It's going to have a bunch of pre-configured utilities already installed and waiting for us on the desktop. Okay, you can see that we've logged in. You can see some of these pre-configured utilities over here. And then per the instructions, what we're going to do is go down to the desktop, where we will find the server manager running, but we can close this out. And in just a little bit of time, we'll see this OneView InstantOn process has launched. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to accept all the licensing agreement. We have hyperlinks if we choose to read those agreements. We'll select next. All right, so what we can do is we can configure the system to use the local vCenter incident, or if we want to, we could actually choose a remote vCenter incident if we felt like it as well. All right, nice thing about this solution, as we're kind of searching out the local vCenter incident, we don't have to sit here and wait. We can actually move forward if we felt like it. Now, if I click next, you'll see that we've got a little red dot over here. That means that there's some incompleted tasks, but if we back up, we can see it's just trying to access the local vCenter incident. Right. Licensing for this, you'll have to put a vCenter license in. You can purchase the solution with a vCenter license, or you can bring your own vCenter license if you so choose. We're going to move forward. We don't have to sit here. This will kind of correct itself. We'll come back and look at it in a little bit. All right, next we'll have to choose, under the health section, we'll have to choose our Hyperconverged appliances. I have two of them, which introduces something interesting, and you don't have to worry about this if you have three or more, but we have to break quorum inside this environment. So if there's a split lane scenario where either one of these systems can't communicate to each other, you need kind of have a tiebreaker out there, so who knows who has a valid copy of data in the environment. So we'll need a quorum witness to be configured, and when we have two nodes in this Hyperconverged blade, that'll be an NFS here, so then you get some shared storage. A file share out there in order to be able to do this. All right, so I've picked my two appliances that we're going to use. We're going to move forward. Next, we're going to choose some contiguous spaces of IP addresses. So let's start off here. Now, I had two Hyperconverged appliances in this environment, so I'm using 100 all the way out to 102, and it automatically picked those extra addresses. Now, if I had four Hyperconverged appliances that I was configuring, this would extend out to 104. Basically, we have one for the vCenter environment and then one IP address for each EXSX server in the environment. And I have two, so that's why we went up to 102. Next we'll need a subnet mask, a gateway, and then of course any well-defined VMware environment is going to need some vMotion IP addresses. Again, you'll need one of those per each ESX node. And of course, put in the subnet. And then we can add an optional VLAN. So this could all exist on the same one VLAN if you wanted to. I've chosen not to. I've chosen to separate these out in different VLANs. And then our software-defined storage, in HP's case, that'll be store virtual. It'll need some IP addresses as well. So for each hyperconverged node, it'll need 4 IP addresses. And you notice since I've got 2 hyperconverged nodes, I'm going from 100 to 107. Of course, we'll need a subnet mask, a gateway, and then the optional VLAN if we so choose to use that. And we'll click next. Now the software-defined storage, or store virtual, is going to need a login credential as well as the password. Of course, we have to confirm that. Next, we'll need a DNS server and the optional time server, which happens to be my same DNS server. Mail settings, you'll need an email server in this environment, and this is in case the software-defined storage has an error. It's going to need to email somebody about this error. So I'm going to set the sender as well as the recipient as myself. And then we're going to need to configure the quorum witness within this environment. And this is what's going to be the tiebreaker. And again, this is going to be an NFS share that exists on your network. And you don't have to worry about this if you've got 3 or more nodes. Okay, and then click next. And now we're at a review configuration page where we can look at the settings that we put in one quick and easy to use fashion. Now, if you're obviously going to want to look through this and make sure you've got everything set correctly. But if you haven't set it correctly and you deploy it anyways and something goes wrong, you can actually recover from this. There is a quick reset or a quick recovery of the system that can be run. Now, if you notice, if we go back to the vCenter incidents, you can see that everything's green over here, so we're ready to roll. So we'll go back down to review configuration, and then we'll click deploy. Now it says it's going to take about 11 minutes in order to do this deployment. That'll be the initial deployment of this environment. So both of our ESX servers, the vCenter incident, the OneView for vCenter plugin, as well as the software-defined storage or store virtual within this infrastructure. After this is done, what's going to happen is we're going to see a vMotion transfer of this machine here into the software-defined platform. So if you remember, I had mentioned that this system is going to become our vCenter incident. And right now it exists on local storage on one of the ESX nodes. And of course, once we create the software-defined storage for high availability, I want to do a storage vMotion of this system into the software-defined storage environment or inside our shared storage environment. And that's kicked off automatically. After that storage vMotion transfer has happened, and just a little bit more time, the secondary process will kick off. So I'm obviously not going to stick around here for 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do is kind of fade out and come back in. As a matter of fact, I'm going to cut out some of the dead spots within this, so to keep this video kind of short. So what I would recommend is that you look down here to get an accurate representation of time. The deployment generally takes about an hour or so to complete, and you'll see that as we kind of go through that. Okay, our initial InstantOn process has complete. If we go back to deploy, we can see everything that has been done for us as a part of this process. Right, so certainly we have some next steps. We're going to need to license our store virtual VSAs, and they give you a link to the licensing portal. We could manage the shared storage directly through the central management console, but as I'm going to show you in a little bit, you don't necessarily need to do that. And then we can also launch the vCenter web client as well. Now, I don't need to do that. I could just click Finish and wait for the secondary process to kind of kick off. But I'm actually going to launch the web client so we could look at it, because I want to show you what's going on in the backdrop of this client, so you can see what's happening. And once again, like I had mentioned, this system here is migrating from local storage into the software-defined storage through a storage vMotion. And once that's completed, the secondary process will kick off to install the new user interface. We'll accept the certificate. And we'll log into our vCenter incident through the typical credentials. And the password you'll find within the documentation. Okay, we can see our OneView for vCenter plugin has been successfully installed. We can also see the storage vMotion transfer happening right here. And again, that's this machine here is getting migrated from local storage into the software-defined storage. Now there are some alarms that are over here that we can safely reset the green. And let's take a look at our cluster itself. So we'll go into Host and Clusters, expand our data center, expand the cluster, and then what we'll see is we've got our two ESX servers, this management machine, and that's this guy again, as well as our two VSAs. And I wouldn't worry too much about this. This is just letting us know that high availability constraints are an issue. And again, this was installed on local storage. So once this migrates, I expect that this will go away. Over here, if we look at the messages that exist here, you'll see the number of vSphere heartbeat data stores for this host is 1, which is less than required 2. So let's explore as to why that exists. So if we go over into the storage itself and expand that out, you'll see 2 local data stores. So this represents both the storage that exists on both of the systems, as well as this one storage piece here, which is created on the software-defined storage within Store Virtual. And this is just big enough to be able to house all the management tools for this hyperconverged platform. And that's all HP has created for you, is just this one, because they don't know how maybe you want the rest of the storage kind of configured. Do you want it as one big volume? Do you want multiple volumes? Do you want a volume per virtual machine that you create? You know, that's all up to you in this environment, but you definitely need to get another volume created to at least correct these messages right here. So they give us a process to be able to do that. And again, I could wait to the end of the hyperconverged installation, especially after the new user interface, but I've got a little time now, so I'm going to roll through that. So what we can do is go over to Actions, go down to Management Actions, to create HP data store. We're going to create the data store on the cluster. I'm going to click Next. Then we'll click our incident in a Store Virtual. And for this case, I'll just make a small 500 gig drive. We'll do network RAID 10. Select Next, and we'll give ourselves a name for our data store. Click Next again. And we'll have to wait till we get a bunch of green check marks going across before we can proceed. Now, if you think, what does it take to actually provision storage within your virtualized environment? Certainly, you need to create the storage on the storage system. Then you're going to need to export that storage to a couple systems. Then you're going to need to go inside your VMware environment and actually rescan hosts to find this storage. you'll need to create your VMFS volume, and then you need to make sure all your systems have access to that. And if we look below here, we can see that our management solution is doing that on our behalf right now. So we're doing create HP data store, we did rescan of HBA. Right, in a little bit, we'll have some new storage that will exist. Right, so you can see the VMFS data store being created. And now that that's completed, we can go back up into storage. We can see that our new storage exists. Right, then we can go back over here, take one of our systems, and right click on it, and then reconfigure for vSphere HA to correct that heartbeat data store issue. And as you can see, our infrastructure looks correct now. I scroll down a little bit. You can see that our management machine is relocated from the local storage into the software-defined environment. Right, so at this point, we're just waiting for the secondary process of the new user experience to actually launch in the environment. So I can click Finish here. And we're just waiting for that secondary process to kick off. Be patient, it will launch, as we'll see in a few seconds. Okay, so it looks like our secondary process is launched in the back. So to remind ourselves real quick of what we see here, we see both of the VMware nodes that exist here, as well as 3 virtual machines. This right here, let's scroll up a little bit here. This right here is our management system here. All right. And then these are our 2 store virtual instances, one for each node. All right. And basically the way this works is this takes local storage and represents it back to the world as iSCSI traffic, or to itself as iSCSI traffic. And then as you copy data to this, a secondary copy gets copied there. And the same thing happens as we expand out these nodes. So over here is our new user experience launching, where we'll configure this. Okay, so let me minimize our vCenter incident here. And let's go through the process of installing this. This will be a newly created password so you can get into the new user interface. I want to give a network IP address for this new user interface. Subnet mask, as well as a gateway. And then vCenter access. And certainly while I was waiting, I could have created a new user, but we'll just use what we have. And then we're going to click Submit. Now it doesn't look like anything happened on the screen after I clicked Submit, but there is a process that is kicking off. In a little bit we'll see an update icon appear on the bottom. This is a good time to be patient. It is doing its job in the backdrop, and it is doing the installation of what will be 2 more virtual machines. One will be a OneView incident, and the other will be this new management interface. So this new management interface certainly leans into the OneView incident in order to be able to collect its data and information. And there we have the little updating information. So this will stay pretty stagnant as it goes through its process, and you'll know it's completed because it'll pop up the IP address where you'll be able to log into the solution and complete the configuration of this new user experience. Okay, we can see that this is completed, and I can actually launch the new user interface from here, where we'll actually have to do a little bit more configuration of this environment. Real quickly, what we're going to do is go back to the vCenter environment, and I'm going to refresh the screen here, and we will see that we actually have 2 more virtual machines. We have the OneView incident here, as well as this new management interface, which is actually what we're going to launch now. We'll go into Advanced, we'll add the exception. get into this environment and we'll log in with the credentials that we had given in the last screen. Remember that, and then we'll click Setup. Okay, so some things we need to do is first we'll go over here. We've already put in a lot of this information, but certainly you could add DNS names. So down here, more importantly, is we need to give the OneView system that was deployed an IP address. So we're going to do that. I'm going to click OK. Certainly here is where we'd set up a different vCenter server if we wanted to. If you wanted to connect to Active Directory, you could do that. And then if you configured ILO, your ILO ports in the system, you can go in here to actually configure that. And I actually have my ILO ports configured, so this information. So we're going to manage this guy here. And we're also going to manage this ILO port here. And then we'll click OK. And then we'll click Submit. And we'll actually see, we'll go through a configuration of this infrastructure here. Okay, so this is configured and we're ready to go on to the dashboard. Okay, this is the dashboard for our new user interface, and I'm going to create a separate video that's actually going to go into the detail of this. So whether or not you want to manage this infrastructure through this interface or through vCenter, you get your choice. And obviously vCenter has the HP personality with the OneView plugins for vCenter. So that's a complete installation of the Converged 380 or the HC380. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and please stay tuned for more videos.